we had this meeting where the president received a progress report um, in terms of the framework which was adopted in 2018 on the Presidential Jobs Summit. But we know that this is happening during the time when the Statistician General has released the figures of the second quarter of the unemployment, which are very, very serious, recording an increase in terms of unemployment to 29%. We were therefore looking at the various projects which were agreed upon in terms of the implementation, where we said there were 77 commitments which we were supposed to be implementing, and looking at which commitments have been implemented, and also looking at which were successful, but also looking at the commitments where there have been constraints and weaknesses, and that's what we were discussing. And at the end of that report, which was accepted by all the parties, we went to discuss about the way forward. The way forward being how do we fast track the implementation of the commitments in all the areas, all the projects which we have talked about, because we must accept that the momentum of the implementation was, in one way or another, disturbed by what I would say the political period of the elections, where the focus at some stage became the elections. But you must also accept that even within the government there was some restructuring of the ministries and the appointment of new ministers. And following that was the issue of a very tight program of parliament. But we had agreed, we've agreed now that after this, there's going to be a focus on all these projects of the Job Summit. And we have even taken a decision led by the President that these structures, which were meeting quarterly, are now going to meet every first Monday of the month, led by the President, meeting here at NEDLAC to try and fast track, to try and unblock if there are any blockages. And we've agreed also on the issue of clear time frames and milestones in all the projects which we have agreed, which were identified. But again, the focus became the issue of the youth, especially the youth which is out of school youth, because we have a tendency of talking about those who are qualified, whereas we have these who tend to be the dropouts who do not have any qualifications, that our programs must also speak to those to those young people who do not necessarily have the qualifications. That's the brief which I can be able to say, but I can also allow the leadership of the social partners to also make some comments. Chief.
Thanks, Minister. I'm representing BUSA here, and just to add to the Minister's comment, I think that the President started the session with a comment that said that we need to be frank and honest in our discussions, and I think it was a very frank and honest meeting. We got the report on progress on the Job Summit commitments. We also understood that, Job Summit happened in October last year, and between October last year and now, both the social climate and the economic climate, as well as the political climate, has been difficult. And we, I think, recognize that we are trying to address job creation and deal with the commitments that we made at the Job Summit within the context of a very constrained environment, and so we talked about that. I think we all recognize that the country is in a difficult situation, particularly given the data that came out in the last week, both from Eskom, the unemployment data, as well as Fitch reducing our outlook from stable to negative. And so I think the commitment, certainly from business, is that we continue to engage on this, but we also engage, certainly from our point of view, on some of what we consider some of the critical issues that we need to talk about to get investment in and to get businesses working again, so that jobs can be created. And I think the monthly meeting that the minister referred to will be, according to the president, and this is what the president put on the table, will be a smaller meeting of the stakeholders with the president, so that we can actually get into the real hard discussions on some of the issues we need to deal with as a country. It's not just government's problem, it's all of our problems, and we need to put our shoulders to the wheel to have the hard discussions, to make the hard trade-offs, to get into the nitty-gritty of the tough decisions we need to take as a country. And so we welcome the president's decision that we meet once a month, that we meet as a smaller group once a month, and the bigger group can meet once a quarter or so. And we will certainly engage in those smaller groups, the once a month groups, to talk about some of the hard issues we need to talk about and the decisions we need to take, with a continuing commitment that we support the president. We believe that we have an administration in place now that is serious about dealing with the issues. And I think that we've reached a stage where all stakeholders recognize that we are in a crisis mode and we need to pull together to actually address that. So let me leave it to that.
Labour? Oh, Mr. Ucheran, community.
Pay me.
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Thulani Chefuta, the leader of the civil society component at NEDLAC, or the community constituency. And indeed, with the commencement of the meeting, we all acknowledged the difficult circumstances or conditions of our economic outlook, and we kept on emphasizing the hard choices that we have to make if we are to get the jobs right, which include getting all the investments we need to grow the economy, thereby creating jobs. And even on that, we're not naive to the fact that we come from experiences of jobless growth. But what is encouraging is that when we kept on making reference to the hard choices that we have to make, the president then challenged all of us as social partners to say, let's put those things on the table. So we leave this meeting with the homework of going to identify those hard choices that need to be made, such that if they are implemented, we shake the base of unemployment in South Africa. Of course, the meeting was gravely concerned on the sharp increase of the needs, or young people who are not in employment, not in education, and not in training, which increment gets up to about 455,000. Encouragingly, the meeting expressed support for the ideas that were presented by the president on what was termed the Presidential Youth Employment Plan, of course with inputs from all of us as social partners. And so that is one of the things that we think, if we get issues of youth employment right, they will make a significant dent on the overall employment. And finally, we know that we took an approach, a project-based approach, in terms of our agreements at the Job Summit. And we have agreed now that we must go back into those projects. We must identify where blockages are and block those immediately, and utilize the meetings that we agreed on, which are leadership meetings that will meet once a month with the president, to unblock and report on progress that we're making in the implementation of those projects. Thank you very much.
No, I can just confirm that we have a fruitful discussions. Labour came here with some doubts, and we posed those questions to all the social partners, whether we're still committed to the commitment that we made in the job summit. Influence what was happening, and we're happy to hear all social partners recommitting themselves that commitment made must be honored, where difficulties arises must be discussed, and to that extent, where there has been an agreement that business leaders and organized labor must meet as a matter of agency to address all the challenges, including this plethora of retrenchment notices that are coming up. Of course, we discussed the question of the energy security. We agreed that the issue of Eskom is an issue that all of us must be grapple with, and we agreed that we needed to be engaging. These are societal issues. We're asking ourselves whether we're not going to the road to IMF, and the conclusion that we made that we're not there yet. We are positive that all the problems that identified are not insurmountable, are within our reach, and we can be able to make progress in dealing with those issues. We also agree that in working with the time frames, we have to do the impact of whatever project that we are dealing with, so that we are not just doing the tick box, but want to see whether we're making progress in dealing with those particular issues. So it was encouraging that the issue is elevated not just to any other representative, but to the top of when you got your president, you got your DP, you got the ministers. You can't ask anybody above those particular people. The leadership of trade union is here. The leadership of business have agreed, in community, that this is a project that all of us must put the hands on deck. So that hope has been revived, that under these difficult times, we should not lose hope and wait for somebody else to take decision on our behalf. So with these monthly meetings, with a fewer people, I think is the right direction. Does not mean we're dissolving the current structure. The current structure will continue working on and report on a quarterly basis. We need to look to the capacity, almost releasing people to work full time on the issues of job. I think is an encouraging and brave decision that needed to be carried by everybody else. Thank you.